Welcome back to Relics of Hyrule, the series. This is episode 178. I have a lot of lore that I need to read for this episode, so this episode will be Jay Calenad reads lore for a bulk of it, I suppose. Or maybe it'll just be like half of it. Who knows? We'll see. And then from there, we are going to move on to Solstheim. Although we are in the Reach, so I might try to find Din's Shrine. I think that would be a good thing to do, because I don't think Miranda has found it yet. We shall see. Alright. That waterfall is loud. Oh, lag. Okay, there we go. So let's first go... I guess let's go west. There's the golden fox. Listen, you. You are loud. And you need to stop. Oh, okay, maybe... Thank you. A lot of help you were. I didn't do it. Oh, wait, no, I did do it. I think that was because of a perk that I have from Path of Sorcery that helps. It's like the mastery of fire destruction or something like that, and you end up just really creaming people's clocks. That's not the phrase. Alright, let's read some lore. I've bounced around enough. Let's see. Did we... That was from the Shadow Temple, so I must have read that already. If I didn't read Dead Boy's poem, let me know, and I will read it. It's been a long time since I did the Shadow Temple, so I don't remember. Gerudo poem we can't read, because it is in Gerudo. Why am I pronouncing it Gerudo instead of Gerudo? Because I feel like it. Same thing with Higher Than Hope. If I didn't read Higher Than Hope, let me know. Oh, what's this? Old note. Shared notes, I don't need to read those. Ah, we can make songbook page elixirs. Zelda's Wrath. Okay, let's read Zelda's Wrath. Oh wait, no. Not Zelda's Wrath. We need to read Forgotten Dwemer Legends Volume 2. So this one is not translated, but the translation... The Fall of Hyrule and the Folly of Grandeur, written down by Dulthorn Rizomgerruns, translated by Jayata. Popular stories of the Kingdom of Hyrule presented as perfect and infallible, and that when it fell, dark magic and the wheels of fate were to blame. Other legends tell of ancient deities who abandoned Hyrule and blame a hero who was supposed to save the kingdom from disaster. All this, of course, is false. A kingdom so large and prosperous could not have been so easily destroyed so quickly. The Dwemer coexisted with Hyrule at the end, so we know the truth. Hyrule was an ancient civilization with a history spanning thousands of years. It is said that the kingdom was the first to exist on Tamriel, and that it began in the sky. This displays the ego and hubris of the Hylian people. Hyrule was proud of its diversity, that Gerudo Hylians, Gorons, Zora, Kokiri, Yeti, etc. all lived peacefully in the realm, but these tribes were deeply segregated and lived miles apart. While friendly to each other, they did not commingle or cohabitate, which is incorrect. Anyway, sorry. The exception, of course, were the Gerudo. The traditions of the Gerudo stated that women stayed with the tribe in the valley, and men went to war or traveled as merchants. Thus, there was a very high concentration of Gerudo women and a low concentration of Gerudo men, as they were often killed or found more comfortable lives in the lush landscapes of Hyrule, outside the wasteland of their desert home. Gerudo women, therefore, took the Hylians for their male companions, and what man would want to live in a desert? Legends say that Gerudo are all female, and a man is born every century. This man was crowned king and ruled the Gerudo. This is a misunderstanding of the true tradition, which is that Gerudo queens ruled the tribe, but at the beginning of every century a man was crowned king. He ruled alongside the queen. He did not usurp her. One king was rumored, however, to have banished, killed, or otherwise disposed of his queen, and these rumors painted him as an evil man. He was simply an unpopular ruler, and when his queen died of natural causes or disappeared, he was blamed for her death or for conspiracy. This king was also blamed when violent events began to erupt in Hyrule. The Gerudo were an easy target, as they looked very similar from Hylians and other races, and tended to be aloof and militaristic. The appearance of their women was also regarded as ugly, given their sharp features and often muscular bodies. Propaganda was spread to paint the Gerudo as devious or evil, and their ruler to be a dark sorcerer seeking to take the throne of Hyrule for himself. Violence continued, and the Gerudo were blamed. Nobles blamed the Gerudo, and the poor blamed the nobles for inaction, all while violence continued and nothing was done. Laws were enacted to keep Gerudo out of Hyrule, but violence continued. Cemeteries were filled with children, and the citizens of Hyrule argued atop their graves. Nobles and royals continued to live comfortably, but the poor became poorer and fewer in number. Valuable professions went unfilled as the poor died into disease and brutality. The monarchy crumbled as a building crumbles without a foundation, and as their kingdom fell, they blamed everyone but themselves. The kingdom's provinces and tribes became fragmented and self-contained. The Zoras, Gorons, Yeti, and even the Gerudo lived on without Hyrule, and the Kokiri remained blissfully unaware that there was ever a conflict at all. Another phenomenon mentioned in the legends of Hyrule are the dark days when the sun never rose and the sky remained black forever. The days became colder and Hyrule fell into an unseasonable eternal winter. These legends also mention the eruption of a volcano in the kingdom and a monster emerging from said volcano. The darkness and cold were born of the volcanic eruption. The ash blocked the sunlight, cooling Hyrule. Hyrule's histories weave tightly with the legend of Zelda, roll credits, a wise, fair ruler and powerful sorceress and descendant of a goddess. She was said to be a brilliant tactician and compassionate queen. In fact, several women named Zelda exist in Hylian legends, as the name was passed down with each generation, and the oldest daughter of each king was always named Zelda to honor the legend. The Queen of Hyrule during the so-called Last Great War of Hyrule was regarded highly and was said to have directly fought evil in place of an absent hero. However, there is no evidence that this woman ever existed. The Dwemer took in refugees from Hyrule's many civil wars, and we preserved myriad relics of Hyrule. Roll credits. The magic was potent and worthy of study. The citizens we took in were often unaware that their heirlooms resonated with magical energy. We were grateful for the opportunity and used much of Hylian ingenuity to strengthen our understanding of this world and its history, however convoluted and misinterpreted it may be. Translator's note. I am surprised by this book in two regards. First, the author seems to be fair to Hyrule's history, rather than ignoring it or judging it as Dwemer often do. Second, the author makes no mention of the Black Beast, and implies that Zelda may not have existed. I know she existed. She was a fearless leader and a formidable sorceress. There was surely evidence of her, as well as the Black Beast, and it pains me that the legend of Zelda has faded so. Okay, so basically the idea here with this book is that the Dwemer are sort of revising history and painting it in a logical way. From their perspective, all this magic is silly, and so they are restructuring what actually happened to make it logical and to like take magic out of the equation. We know from visiting the Ruptured Towers and seeing all the lore there, as well as other places, that this is incorrect. But the idea of the Dwemer Legends Volume 2 is to sort of cast doubt on what we've seen, but also to indicate that there are multiple sides and that it's not as obvious as it may seem. So I really like this book. This was actually, I wrote this a long time ago, before the Spirit Temple. Before the Spirit Temple was even a thing. Like, I didn't even know I was going to do the Spirit Temple. And I was like, what do I put in this? What should I put in the Spirit Temple? What kind of lore? And I realized, this one, I was going to add it somewhere. It was going to be in Sand God Passage. It was going to be somewhere. I was going to add it somewhere. And I didn't know where, and I didn't want to just throw it in a random place. But this is very fitting because it focuses so much on the Gerudo, and it focuses a lot on Ganon, and mentions it's a different way of looking at Ganon. But we know that Ganon was evil, and he was a bad man. Was it translation note? Translation suggestion. Jayata, a suggested addendum to your Dwemer book translation. The book also does not adequately highlight Ganon's evil, reducing it to cruelty to a single woman. Ganon was cruel to all of us. Past kings were not so as arrogant as he, or as privileged. Other kings were proud to lead alongside their queens. Other kings were raised to respect others, not to hate them. As the only man in a tribe of women, the Gerudo king was raised to be one of us, not as a trophy or an idol, but as an equal. History is cruel and sees the past in extremes. A tribe of women with a king, they say, is sexist and misogynistic. The tradition seems odd, but it is viewed through a lens of bigotry. Historians assume that crowning a male Gerudo king deems him as superior to his female subjects, but they ignore the queen, who is his guide, his mentor, and his partner in leadership. She was queen before he was king, and teaches him what she knows. What if a Gerudo were a tribe of men, with a woman born every 100 years? Would it be sexist to crown her queen? Is the Gerudo tradition sexist simply because women have been oppressed by other societies? We are a tribe of warriors. We are genderless because we are all women. A Gerudo king is genderless because he lives in a tribe of women. Ganon was corrupted, however, and he viewed himself as something greater because of his rarity. Did he kill his queen? Most likely. But he was an anomaly, a scar on an otherwise pristine tradition. Such a pity that he, the worst of us, is how we are judged by history. So yeah, basically what I just said, this summarizes it much better than I could ever do, and I wrote this. I really like this view of that tradition, because it is kind of sexist to be like, yeah, Gerudo king, but if you look at it from the lens of inside the tribe, it's not unacceptable to them. It's not bad to them. So there's gotta be a system that makes sense. Somehow. I thought I cured that. I guess I'll cure it again. I don't really want that's poison. Oh no. I think I just did it. Okay, cool. Also, why isn't my health regenerating? I don't really care. So while in real life there are oppressive systems in the real world. But in some cases, something that seems oppressive is only oppressive because we view it from a certain perspective. Some things are not necessarily as oppressive as they seem, and there are cases where it is definitely as oppressive as it seems. But I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't know how to word this the right way. I hope it makes sense. And it's not like you could argue that, oh, well, they could be brainwashed to think that it's acceptable, but like the Gerudo, I wanted to make the Gerudo, I wanted to reframe that a Gerudo is crowned king every 100 years. A Gerudo man is crowned king every 100 years, but I wanted to expand the idea of the tribe because it wouldn't make sense if a Gerudo king was crowned every 100 years because people don't live that long unless Gerudo are like elves. Then, you know, and they have like super long lives. Are you dead? Oh yeah, you're dead. You're just paralyzed. Unless they live like super long lives and 100 is like 50, that's different. But that's not how it is. I don't think that's how it is. So I like the idea of there is a Gerudo queen, which was established in Breath of the Wild, that there is essentially a Gerudo queen. And I like the idea of, yeah, the Gerudo, 100 years there's a Gerudo king, and that's just the tradition, and it's not sexist. It's just that Gerudo are a tribe of women, because the men tend to leave, and so tradition states that a man is required to stay. Every 100 years they crown one king and require him to stay in the tribe. I just climbed that mountain like crazy. But he learns from the queen, so yes. Okay, I'm done talking about that. There's one more lore book that we need to read, and that is Zelda's Wrath. And Zelda's Wrath, hold on to your butts, because it is dark. Hi, doggo. Okay. Well, I discovered the mine that I wanted to discover, but Markarth is loud and laggy, and will crash my game if I get too close. Probably. Who knows? Okay. It's a nice place. Ooh. Oh, yeah, so right outside Markarth, there's this little tent. But there's been a landslide and it's been engulfed by stuff. There's a note from shopkeeper. Greetings, patron. My sincere apologies, but alas, the mask shop has moved. You see, this area is much too unstable, both geologically and politically, so I've packed up and departed for the rift. I do hope you'll seek me out. See you around, the shopkeeper. Then there's a burial mask. And there's also some stuff that is inaccessible unless you use telekinesis or something. Get a witness. There we go. Nice. Good old telekinesis. Alright, yeah, so I don't know if we've met Max yet, but Max is down by the rift, and this is where he used to be. He sells masks, hence Max. Okay, let's read Zelda's Wrath, and I think that'll be the end of the episode. Zelda's Wrath. Beware the fury of a patient man. You must not do this. I have no other choice, my queen. Give me the dagger, Alnasan. You must not do this. She stared at us, kneeling, the dagger shaking as she held it to her chest. Zelda was reaching out to her, and I was holding my breath out of fear. Alnasan, I pleaded, give me the dagger. You... I'm sorry, she said, and the dagger plunged. She collapsed, and the sound echoed in the chamber. Zelda was silent. I looked at her. We both breathed heavily. I can't do this, Naburu, she whispered. I couldn't answer. All of this death, every life, I can't do this anymore, she said, looking to me. She had no tears in her eyes, no expression on her face. "She was a sister to me," I said. Zelda was silent. She closed her eyes. Prepare for battle, Nabooru," she said. "They are coming." Before I could respond, I heard running footsteps. I turned to face the entrance to the chamber and saw a dozen or so Gerudo warriors enter and stand in formation. Once the last of them arrived, 2 old women entered. The witches. The witches. What do we have here? Oh, crap. Okay. So I'm going to pronounce this. I don't know how to pronounce either of these 2 names. Do not crucify me. I'm going to pronounce it Kotaki and Kume. Do not crucify me. "Ah, what do we have here, Kotake?" one of them said. "Goodness me, it's the Queen of Hyrule, Kume," the others cackled. "I see a young lady with her," Kume said. "You do? I see a corpse," Kotake snarled. Zelda did not turn to face the witches. She raised her head and looked to the ceiling, her eyes closed. "What do you have to say here for yourself, Princess?" Kotake said mockingly. "Yes, you have killed one of your own." "One of our own. The king will be displeased," Kume added. "Oh, and you have Nabooru with you," Kotake said. "I am disappointed." "Of all Gerudo to be a traitor, poor Nabooru," Kume said. "You lie," I said. "Zelda did not kill her." Nabooru, Zelda sighed. "You have no proof. This is unjust, unfair." Zelda bowed her head. "Nabooru," she sighed. "Please." I stopped speaking, but glared at the witches. "What should we do, Kume?" Kotake asked. The king would want to see her," Kume replied. "Dead or alive?" Kotake inquired. "Dead, certainly," Kume said, nodding decisively. "Nabooru too?" "Nabooru too." I'm going to add a period after inquired. I'm trying to take a screenshot of that so that I have a record of that, but I'll make a note. Anyway, the witches motioned for their warriors to attack. Zelda turned to face them. Her expression was neutral and empty. "I'm sorry," she said emotionlessly. The first Gerudo to swing at her was dodged. Another Gerudo swung, and Zelda blocked her blade. I was challenged by a pair of warriors and fought for my life. My fight brought me away from Zelda and from where I fought. I saw 8 more warriors surround her, ready to charge when the 2 actively fighting her were dispatched. The witches took to the air and hover over her, spells ready. As the 8 warriors charged from around her and as spells volleyed from above, a gust of wind exploded from her and the 8 warriors were thrown to the ground. The spells struck the floor where Zelda once stood. She reappeared near me, knocking the warriors and me to the ground. I quickly stood up and looked to Zelda, who spun around, surrounded in blue magic, reflecting a fire spell away from her and back at Kotake. One of the Gerudo near me unsheathed the dagger and slashed at Zelda's ankle, but Zelda kicked the dagger out of her hand. The other Gerudo stood to engage me in battle. "Traitor!" she shouted, swinging her blade at me. I blocked it and attempted to disarm her. She countered and slashed at my arm, forcing me to drop my weapon. I held my hand against the wound, and she held her blade against my neck. "Too easy," she said. As she tightened her grip, she was enveloped by glittering magic and thrown to the side. Zelda had stopped her for the time being. Zelda knelt to me and grabbed my arm. She briefly concentrated, and my wound was healed. "Nabooru, please forgive me," she said, looking into my eyes. "For what?" I asked. "For that which I am about to do," she replied. She let go of my arm and stood and faced the witches, as well as the warriors who had surrounded us. "Do you want to end the fight?" Kume laughed. "Asking for peace? Do you give up?" Kotake cackled. Zelda said nothing and launched a fireball at Kotake, ending her laughter. The witch was too hurt from her previous injury and too surprised to react, and took the full power of the spell. She fell from the air and struck the ground with a sickening thud. Time stood still. Kume rushed to the side of her sister and quickly stood. "Kill her," she commanded, and Gerudo charged Zelda. Zelda closed her eyes, held out her hands, gestured, and a massive fiery explosion swept from her. I was left unharmed, but every warrior was severely burned and they collapsed, screaming in pain. Kume was unharmed as well. Zelda walked slowly, stoically toward the witch, past the screaming warriors writhing in pain. I watched Kume's expression change from anger to shock to fear. as Zelda came to stand before her. "You now know the meaning of loneliness," Zelda said quietly, the room shaking as she spoke. "I have shown you that good has its limits." She suddenly plunged her sword into Kumei's chest. Whoops. Into the Kumei's chest. I'll fix that. The witch cried out in pain. "As you spend your last moments alone," Zelda said calmly, "listen to the sounds of your dying daughters, and think about the life you had. How long were you hateful? How long were you angry? Why were you so committed to hate and death and suffering when the horizon was darkening, the path was ending, and everyone's tale was coming to a close?" Kumei choked. Blood had soaked Zelda's hand and her dress, but she was still expressionless. "I am sorry," Kumei whispered. I don't want to die." "No one does," Zelda replied. She kneeled to look Kumei in the eyes. Tears streamed down the witch's face as she looked at Zelda. Zelda put her hand to the witch's face, then moved her arm around her neck in an embrace, and her mouth close to the witch's ear. "I forgive you," she whispered, and then quickly twisted her sword. Kumei let out a peaceful sigh and died. Zelda waited a moment, then drew her sword from Kumei's chest. She stood and turned to Kotaki's corpse. She kneeled and placed her hand on Kotaki's forehead, bowing her head in prayer. Then she stood and faced the Gerudo warriors on the ground, while some still writhing, others unconscious. Kumei's blood dripped from her sword. She went to each soldier and healed them of their wounds, erasing their burns and dissolving their pain. "If you value this world," Zelda announced, "you will join me. Only I can save it." The soldiers stood one by one and followed Zelda to me. I stared at her, shocked, confused, and terrified. She looked at me with solemn eyes. "Why?" I said breathlessly. "What about Alna-san?" She is beyond my help," Zelda said. "But after she... Her soul belongs to another god now," Zelda said stoically. "Come, Naburu, we have work to do." She turned and made her way out of the spirit temple. I retrieved my glaive from the ground and followed her, turning to look at the destruction left in the room. I felt dread. I felt a shadow hanging over me. Everything will come to dust. All things. That's Zelda's Wrath. So, when we found Zelda's Wrath, it was in the Spirit Temple, and we found it with a Yiga Blade Master who was standing at an open chest and sort of staring at the chest. It is unclear if Zelda's Wrath is a real lore book. Something I will point out is the first letter of each line. And there's that, but there's later, Alna-san, give me the dagger. Alna-san, I pleaded, give me the dagger, you. So there's a couple instances in there that may offer clues that this isn't actually true. But it could be true if the Yiga wrote this book as propaganda against Zelda and confabulated all of that, created all of that. It's strange that they're so specific about Alna-san, who's a character we have seen, and they're so specific about the events that occurred, and it's written from Naburu's perspective. Very strange. Or it's possible that Zelda's Wrath is actually true, 100% true, and the Yiga is taking it out to replace it with another book, or to remove it from the chest. There's also the burned book that we found in the Spirit Temple. Was that the original Zelda's Wrath, the original book that was in there? Or was it just the burned book? Or was the Yiga having second thoughts? Maybe he was taking this book out and he was like, wait a second, maybe I should put this back because it doesn't paint Zelda in a very positive light. Maybe this book is better than what we wrote to sort of make Zelda look bad. Or maybe he had a change of heart. Maybe he's like, no, Zelda deserves to have a better, a more fair, but this isn't really fair. It makes Zelda look violent, but it also develops her character. It's very complicated, it's very nuanced, and that's the point. Like, it's not really 100% sure. It's not really clear whether this was written by the Yiga. It may have been. Maybe they exaggerated it a little, but who knows? If you want this to be canon, if you want this book to be canon, by all means, it's canon. If you want this to not be canon, it's not canon. This book is very open to interpretation, and that's how it is designed, how it was written. So, thank you for watching. I'm going to find Din's Shrine so that we can see it next episode. That's the end of this episode, so I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And we'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I really do not know what is causing my health to not regenerate, but frankly, I don't really give a crap.